I think we're actually live, guys. I think we actually did it. Let's see, we're only 52 minutes late and not set up in the way I want to be. I think we're actually live, guys. And we got all the audio there. I think we actually did it. We'll turn that off. Trying to get all of this has really been a challenge this evening, but we are going to try and make something work here and just get started, because that is the theme of this channel here on YouTube. I believe that we should just get started, because we're not always going to have the right tools. We are not always going to have the right skill set, and you just have to put another foot forward and keep trying. Otherwise, you're never going to make any progress. And so today I had a whole plan to have a camera set up, not even this one, a dedicated microphone. I have obviously the lighting, and it's going to be running through a computer and graphics, and you're going to have both the iPad editing and a camera on me. But that didn't work. Everything seemed to fail, even though I had tested that just a couple weeks ago. So instead, what I'm doing is trying just a different way of doing it. So right now, all I have is a camera on me, and the idea is that I'm going to try and flip to editing photos on my iPad and share that with you as well. I'm hoping you can still have the audio and you can hear me, but you will not have a camera on me to be able to see me. I will be able to see messages in the chat, so if you want to ask any questions about what I'm doing, let me know, and I will reply as I can. But what I'm planning on doing is editing some photos that I took last weekend. As we started the weekend, Chicago got hit with a snowstorm, and I decided to go out and make some photos in that snowstorm. And this is a completely raw editing session. I've looked at them a couple of times, but I have not culled anything. I have not started editing anything except one photo. And you'll see I think it's 90 images total, but I am probably gonna bring that down to, my guess is somewhere between 5 photos, no more than 10. I guess it'll probably be 5 or less in terms of the photos I actually want to keep and potentially share out into the world. So I'm gonna try to flip over to that and see if we can make that happen. So stick with me. All right, so I have tried that on the iPad. We're gonna see when it kicks over actually on the live stream. And maybe if I end this camera, maybe that'll allow the iPad to punch in there. Perfect. I am hoping, again, that you can still hear me. Let me pop some headphones in over there. Woo, sorry about that noise. Alrighty. So I'm going to go back here. You can see that, again, I took 90 photos. This was in the South Loop area of Chicago. And I'm going to just go through, what I'm going to do first is go through and select the ones that I want to start with. And then once I start editing, I usually remove a few more from my selections. But that is what I'm going to start with. So clicking into the first one, I'm just going to get my stars. And the way that I do my initial selections is I don't do any of the star ratings. I just use the flags to say yes, include, or no flag. I don't really use the X flag to actually get rid of it. I just use neutral or include. So these I'm not going to include, although these are, one, they're not in South Loop, but this just wasn't the greatest. This one is okay. I might include that. We'll see. Zooming in and looking at their faces and things, it's kind of an interesting photo. We might be able to do something with that. That was a mistake. And then I made my way down to the skate park in sort of South Loop, but also in Grant Park. And pretty much right when I got there, it started snowing. You can see there's just a little bit of powder there on the ground. And there was technically two skaters there. One who was resting right as it started to snow, and then the other one who you can see here, who was still skating around a little bit. Let's see. I was thinking about keeping one of these. I think this one he looks the most together. In this one, he's already kind of fallen a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and keep this one. Obviously, needs quite a bit of work to make that a photo worth keeping, but or even considering, but we're going to go with it. Then he skated off. He eventually left as well. So I thought he might come up and do another I don't know, grind or kind of balancing act there on the ledge. So I framed up a different shot, but he ended up not going for another trick. As you can see, he skated away. I don't love any of those. There's just too much going on. Now you're going to see in a moment the one photo that I have already edited, which is this one. I obviously like this photo. I have shared this on my Instagram. If you are not aware, I do have my Instagram and Twitter handles in the description below. So feel free to check that out and see how they actually look on my Instagram feed. But moving on, a few more of that gentleman there. I was trying to use a frame within a frame and see if I got an interesting character with this mural, but didn't really happen. Classic alleyway shot that, again, didn't really turn out. I think I might try and save that one. See if I pull up the shadows how in focus that cyclist is. Now this one is more about the irony of, I think we'll go with that one. As you guys will see in the street vlog next week, the theme of this photo shoot was supposed to be balance and within a winter challenge. And so what's a little funny to me is a yoga studio in a winter storm. And so that may not have been the intent, but it was my ironic approach to the challenge. And so I slowed down the shutter in this next set of photos to try and get something. And I really think, I think I like the bug a little better. We'll keep both of them and see how that goes. And then there's this fire hydrant, and as you can see, the footprints in the footpath in the snow make this perfect X, which I really enjoyed. So I'm going to keep that one. I tried a few different angles on this, but I think that I remember looking through these. There's the first shot, and I think that was it. So then it was getting a little too snowy to actually take photos out in it, so I went under one of the bridges, tried a couple of things. There's one of me walking back towards the camera, this one here, that I want to play with. Let's see what I can do with that. I also tried slowing that shutter speed down and getting me walking across. None of these really worked with what I had in mind. The timing of it just wasn't right. Then there are these 3 trucks out in a parking lot that caught my eye. I think this might be interesting. There's also the other angle. I think I like the composition on that one a little better. Nothing really there. Nothing on that one either. Fogged up a little bit. And then these are the last photos out on the platform, the McCormick in Cermak. McCormick Place on Cermak. I think it was, let's see. I think that's going to be the one that I go with. So now that I have picked the ones I want to edit, we just narrow it down to that. I started with 12. That's more than I thought I was going to have here. But now I'm going to go through, I'm going to actually start here. It is going to be a little bit of a different photo edit, but I think it is something that I can play with. So what I start with is just my basics. You'll kind of see my workflow here of what I focus on and what I change first and come back to. It's different on every image, and I do technically have presets in here, some that I have purchased from people like Peter McKinnon just to try it out, as well as Joe Allen. I do use those on occasion. I've also created some of my own that do various things, but most of the time, honestly, I just start editing, and I tweak some of these. I know for this, I think I want to bring the contrast down on this one. I do see if I can pull back some of that sky. No, it's going to be all gray skies, so really pulling in just to where I like it. Let's see. I'm going to leave our shadows pretty close. Pop the white a little bit on that. Probably leave that. Now here, I do a little bit of tone curves. Don't always do a traditional like S curve or anything. I do these kind of to my own liking. What I'm noticing there is the light in the heat cubby. That's what I'm going to call that. Alright, I'm going to start there. One thing I haven't done on this is considered my back. Got a little concerning there. I'm gonna try and straighten this, and I think I might bring this down to underneath this awning. It seemed a little distracting to me. Just get that out of the way a little bit. I think I might also get some of the tracks out. I still like you can see there's a bucket out on the right side of the image and a trash can on the left. I actually really like both of those as a frame to this image. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to come back to colors because I think that's where a lot of the work on this image is going to be done. but I want to see a couple of things first. Now these are taken on a Fuji, so I don't want to go too crazy with the sharpening here in Lightroom. Just there's notorious worming within it, but so I'm a little soft on those. That's okay. I think I'm going to bring the clarity down, maybe not quite that much, as well as our texture, just a tad. Probably put a pretty heavy vignette on this because I want the focus to be on the people. Well, it takes away a little bit from the framing and balance of those, the trash can and the bucket. So we're going to start there. So now I've done most of that. I am going to end up putting a split tone on this most likely, but I want to do our colors first. I just pull saturation back. Not always. I should never say always on these, but a little bit there. Now I go in and do some individual colors. What I know already is most of the buildings in the top of the image is a pretty cool kind of gray and blue. So I'm going to start here in blue and see how I can tweak some of that. So I really want to go purple. I'm also thinking ahead to the split tone that I want to apply to this, so that's impacting some of the color choices that I make here. The other major color that is in this image is that orange spot under the heat lamps. Right now, because I pulled the saturation back on it, it was a little faded, just saturation on the image as a whole, but we will add some of that back into the orange, make that pop a little bit. Now I do think our highlights in that are a little much, so I'm going to go ahead and put a bit of a filter there, pull the highlights back. Just felt like they were peaking a little bit much. Pull our shadows up. It's going to pull detail out of the lady's coat just a little bit. So it's starting to come together how I like it as well. Once I go ahead and add some split toning, my highlights, I'm probably going to put a bit of blue. Right about there. I might need to bring the overall balance over, but this is a classic kind of blue-orange split, but all right. Bring down that exposure a little bit, and in that filter, I think I'm going to expand it, as well as bring the exposure up. That means my highlights have to come back down. It's always a little bit of a balancing act with these things. So that is the original photo, the raw photo out of camera. And that's where we've edited that to. I think I'm pretty happy with where that's at. I think it captures the scene well and the feeling that was there in terms of cold and people retreating to the warmth of the heat lamps. Now, one thing I do, once I get a style and a feel for a photo shoot, I will generally go ahead and copy a lot of the settings. I won't necessarily pull in the tools because those are going to be image specific. But I think everything else, because I shot everything with the same lens, same camera, everything else is going to be applicable. Except, also thinking about this. This was probably something I should have done beforehand. Now, by adding that color profile, I do think my backs might be a little crushed. So I'm going to pop that back just a little bit. Alright, now we're going to call that good. So I'm going to go ahead and copy our settings. And now what's nice about that is I can go to the next image, paste those as a nice starting point. I can already tell you that one's a little too cool for me, and the vignette on this image is just unnecessary. I'll still have a vignette, but it's not going to be as drastic. First thing I really need to do is straighten up this image. I'm also going to crop it down to a 4x5. I know the only place that this is probably going to end up is Instagram, so why not already make it fit in Instagram. Now there's a couple of ways that I can try and affect how cool this image is. I can do it all over the entire image by adjusting the temperature here, or I can think through the way that I use the split tone, knowing that I used blue and orange, and adjust some of that here. So as I pull that back, seeing some of the cement get a little warmer as opposed to where it was, and that feels a little bit better. And so now I'm able to move through these images a lot quicker because I'm going to go, I think this is going to be more accurate to most of the images, so I'm going to go ahead and copy settings from here. This one I've already done. I'm not going to go through it just because I've already done it. But let's see, let's move on to this cyclist. Paste our settings. This one's a pretty dark image, so I'm going to need to lighten this one up. And part of this was pulling up the shadows to see if I could get any detail on the cyclist. Again, we're going to go 4x5. Does it make more sense to get rid of the car? I think so. There's a little bit of motion blur on him, but I kind of like that. It just shows the snow movement and just the feeling of the day. So I might even brighten that up even more. I think he needs a radial filter. Alrighty. I think I like it. This one I can tell is just a little off, but I think I'm liking the way that these color edits are applying to each image, so I'm not having to do too much there, which is nice. 1 second, just adjusting some of the setup here. I think I'm noticing is some of the glare there in the sky, so I'm gonna try, it's a little large, but I am gonna try and get rid of some of that here. Let's see, add some additional feather. And that seems... Sorry about that. Not sure why this audio, or I mean why this stream from Streamlabs keeps ending, but we're going to keep going. Yeah, now that I look at it, I really do think I like this one with the bug better. Also doesn't have the glare, so I don't have to mess with that. Auto straighten that. There we go. Yeah. Adding back a little bit of contrast to see if it can highlight that snow a little bit. Also noticing my lines are off. They're still off. I think I'm gonna like this one more. Definitely underexposed on these to go for what I'm going for, but I think that's all right. Maybe too much contrast. I think I'm noticing that is going to be a challenge with this one. I don't love that little cap on the left. Again, I'm going to try it, but this one seems harder than the glare. So, does that look natural? Yeah, people probably aren't going to notice that. All right. Keeping it moving. I'm going to pop the exposure, but one thing I'm going to do back on this is draw a lot of that vignette back in. Noticing this is also not exactly centered. This one I'm probably going to do a little differently. Mess with a few more of the settings than normal. I think I don't want... I think I want really warm on this because I want some of that white to really be white. This felt like a whiteout, and I want it to come across. Yeah. The snow kind of keeps most of its same tones, maybe a little cool. But all of the machinery and things gets that nice warm glow. And that one I'm going to copy settings from that, apply them here. Yeah. That almost looks like a film photo. And isn't that what we're all striving for? No, I just have film camera for that. The last image, oof, that doesn't work out. Let's go back and try and copy settings from here. See if that is any better. That's close. So this one I can tell is a little off in terms of framing and making everything centered, but what you gonna do? What that means is I need to really mess with some of this. Yeah. Now if we go back into the split tone, I'm going to push the orange up as well as the teal. And back in our actual colors, I'm going to push the orange as well, the back, that tunnel. The last thing to do with this one is remove that dumb trash. One thing I got to think about here is that Instagram crop. All right. Just to review, these are the final images. Could probably continue tweaking them, but I am pretty satisfied with how they turned out, particularly given that tonight's live streaming was a disaster in terms of technology, but we've made it here. We've made it to this point. So you will see these images in next week's street vlog, where you'll get the behind the scenes footage and some of the story of me actually making these photos. And I might even be going back out tomorrow or Saturday to add a little bit of context to that video, but we will see. I hope that you enjoyed this first live stream, hoping to do this on a more regular basis. and just share my process of how I go about selecting the photos that I like from a photo shoot, as well as how I bring them to life in the way that I see and the way that it reminds me of what it felt like to actually be there and making those photos. So hopefully that'll make sense. But yeah, until next time, just get started.